All right, everybody. Welcome to the September 21 Tinderbox Meetup. I think Mark are still traveling back from the Hypertext conference, so hopefully all of that went well. Typically what we do is we go around the room, we introduce new people. We don't have anybody new today, or we jump into themes if we have one. We don't have a theme today. And then we just talk about, otherwise we just talk about what we want to work on. I do have a topic we could discuss. Andreas has been asking about, like, how do we do some practicum, if you will, leveraging and using the Tinderbox tool for the last couple of weeks. And there was a good forum post from somebody this last week on how do they actually parse information. By the way, if people are asking why am I in a car and what am I doing here, I'm in the pre-early tailgating for the 49er game today. So I will be conducting and then I've got my 49er swag on and ready to go. So we're gonna have like a good 4.5 hour tailgate before we go slosh our ways into the game after ample yeah, and maybe remember the game. We'll see how it goes. So that's what I'm doing this morning. So dedication to the Tinderbox community here. So why don't we go ahead and did I hit record? Yeah, we did hit record. Okay, so David, it will commence probably within as soon as I get off the call. So we'll see how it goes. All right. So what do you all want to talk about today? What's on your mind? Chuck, Andreas, Bill, you guys have any topics that you want to discuss?
Well, I'll just bring up this whole AI thing.
Really? I've never heard that. What is that about?
Yeah. Since I'm so new to this and not a techie at any of it, so what I did is I enabled it in a Tinderbox file, and then I proceeded to use Claude, and there's no MCP connection. And I get an error message, which I talked to Mark Bernstein about with email. And the error message is that MCP is disconnected. He said, just ignore that. It's a known flaw. It's really connected. But I asked Claude Desktop, is it connected? And it doesn't know. And I'm fairly certain that my Claude is not connected. And there's forum posts about this, that you have to close everything, open Claude, have Claude open Tinderbox. That my Claude doesn't know how to do that. So I'm totally lost in just getting started, um, integrating AI and Tinderbox. And I just wonder if there's a written something I'm not following, or is it just a mess right now? Um, so any thought?
Yeah, so it's possible. I ran into a similar problem like that, and I had to put a file. Let me see if I can look it up. I had to put a file in the Windows support system. Let me see if I can remember where I did it. Or no, it was in the Claude. It was. Hang on, just remember, we're just going into the game.
That's more important.
All right. So it was in the Claude config file. Sometimes I had to manually install a config file in the Claude application folder to get it to recognize it. So if you give me a second, maybe I can find that.
And do you happen to know, do you need to pay for Claude to do all this, or can you do this in the free version? Or
I actually don't know. That could be it as well. But let me see
Do it
here.
on the free
Yes.
version as well.
So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick, and I'll show you what I figured out. It might be applicable for you, or it might not be. In Claude,
one says I can do it in the free version.
yeah.
Yes, you can.
So
It's just going to limit the number of queries.
Okay,
right.
that's fine.
So if you go to your library and you go to application support and you go to Claude, you want to make sure there's a Claude desktop config file. And if that didn't get installed, then it's not going to work. And if we open up that will include language around the, that's the wrong one. that will include language around the where Tinderbox is. And so I need to reset that one to 11. So yeah, so that will include and tell Claude where the MPC server is. So if you stick that, if you kind of make sure that that application config file is in there.
Can you do me a favor and just post that in the chat?
Mm-hmm. At
Yes,
least
and
that's
note,
what I learned.
and note that Tinderbox 10 needs to be changed in 2 places in that line.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
Because the path actually has 2
Yeah,
places where it mentions
I hadn't done that.
classic
Yeah.
structure for all Apple applications in Mac OS.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, once you fix that in there.
So what do I want to do? So I'm really haven't taken the I want to do, when I do work, I want to work on my project, not Tinderbox. And so I haven't really learned functions yet or anything. And I can say to Claude, write a function to do this. It can help get me started, I think, on what you guys have been doing regularly for a while. So I see it as a shortcut to learning how to do all this stuff.
Yes. It can be, but remember, this is still experimental, and we're figuring it out and all new. So there's a combination of learning. This is not just learning Tinderbox. This is also learning AI and NPC server integration and all that. So,
Yeah, I'll step in and observe as another old timer like David Eddy. I've seen a lot of churn in the tech world over the years. I have to say, I think the churn we're seeing with the AI space is about as dramatic as I've ever encountered in 50 years of this being in this space. So it's a lot of churn. We're just gonna have to get used to it, I guess.
yeah, and it's just exponential change on a daily basis. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that will help you, Bill. And if you want to share your screen, maybe we can try to work it through with you.
Well, okay, that'll be a challenge for me. I just put your thing in drafts, but if I want to share my screen, so wait a second, let me free up my screens and get there, organize myself. I'm closing gazillion applications so I can just start fresh. Share my screen. Now I got to pull up the window. This is, yeah, you're asking more of me, which is something that should be simple. Zoom meetings. All right, now I can share a screen, and I'm just sharing my desktop. So there's nothing here right now. So I'm going to now open a config file, right? Which is, Bill, library. Let's see. Nope.
Library is hidden, as you can see down below downloads, is grayed out. I suspect because you need to go if you're
Oh, library. Wait a second. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. And then application support. Okay. And then
Claude, you're above you.
You guys are faster than me because you've been here before. And so then
Look.
Yeah, so it looks like that.
The first file below web storage.
Okay, so that looks properly set up. Okay, so that's not the problem. So go ahead and open your Claude. and open your Tinderbox.
All right.
Oh, I
so,
bet I know what the problem is.
right,
Yeah, that's
so-
I see. No, I see your problem.
okay.
The number one problem is you need to add your hint folder in. So go to File, Hints.
Well, this is an untitled
Yeah.
folder.
Right.
So,
So go to File, Hints.
hints file.
And you're on an older version. Where's the enable AI
I'm on
in
the
your
box.
version? Yeah. Go
That's
to
my
built-in
other.
hints real quick.
Built-in hints.
So this is Tinderbox 11, but I'll open a recent file, which
No,
I
no, no,
thought.
no. Just
Don't
okay. It's fine.
okay, I won't. I'll shut that. All right. So
Just
here I am.
just go to File, Hints.
File.
Built-in hints down at the bottom.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
And here's hints.
Now go to Outline View.
Outline. Oh, outline view. Wait.
Just click on the tab to the right.
All right, open up Hints just to see if you see. Now you have your AI controls, and then go to Claude. But what I don't understand is why under the File menu you don't have the
Yeah.
enable AI, which is
Right.
interesting.
Which I did have in my existing files.
Hold on,
but
it's not.
in
Oh, I
the-
know.
It's not
It's
under
no.
file,
It's not.
it's under
He's
info.
moved it. Talk about from the very beginning. If you go to Tinderbox 11, click on Tinderbox 11.
Michael, it's
He's
under
moved
Tinderbox 7.
No, open. He's moved it to under there. So you see it says disable all AI integrations. So you have AI integrations enabled. So you're good. Leave that.
Okay.
Okay. So now go to Claude.
Which I'm here.
No, go to Claude, the application.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And ask it to add some notes to your Tinderbox file. Or it could be more specific. Add a note with the name something something. Add a note Tinderbox. Okay.
Aimed.
Yeah.
How's that?
Good.
So this is the kind of thing that I got before. It's not, it
Okay,
can't.
maybe you need to close Tinderbox and save that file, close Tinderbox and reopen and Claude and reopen them both.
All right. So I'll go to, here's my Tinderbox file, save. I'll just keep it untitled and I'll stick it on my
Or
desk.
call it test.
All right. It's in a folder called Tinderbox. Fine. Okay. So now we're going to close Tinderbox completely.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'll reopen
No,
Tinderbox.
close Claude too. Now
Okay.
open Claude.
Claude. I'm gonna, as soon as I move to
Okay. Now Tinderbox is already open. Claude opens it up
Loaded.
automatically. Now open your test file.
Under Tinderbox. Yeah.
test.
Okay. Now ask it to create a note.
In Claude.
Mhm.
Wow.
So the key is you didn't have the hints directory installed in your folder. And that has been brought up in the forum
Okay.
about needing to have the hints defaulted. But let's see if it successfully does it. Oh, you've got to allow permissions. Allow always. There you go.
All right, so if I go into my Tinderbox file,
It doesn't look like it did it. So go ahead and do it again.
Look at the other file though. Look at the untitled one that the first one he opened.
oh,
You didn't tell it to do it specifically in test, so I'm
look at the untitled file. You've got a different. Look at the Tinderbox file behind that one. There you
there
go.
it is.
Hello world.
Okay. So how did I, because I feel like an idiot. How did I enable hints? That was, if I go to
file.
file, built-in hints.
Now, what's interesting though is this file didn't have built-in hints in it. So maybe it's at least one of the Tinderbox files has built-in hints, then it works.
Then,
That's confusing.
so, oh, here's AI.
Mhm.
So well, so Claude how did I enable this, or is it just enabled because it's there?
Built-in hints.
So file.
When you do built-in hints, that puts it in.
Oh,
Puts
it just
built-in
puts
hints
it
in the
in.
file.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think you guys have just, I don't need to do anything. I'll just save this. Okay. So I
So
think,
now ask it to do something else, like put it in the test file you just created,
um,
and have it create some kind of stamp or something for you.
new note. Okay. I didn't say what name, which file to put it in, but I think I've only got one Tinderbox file open.
Yep, there you go, bottom of the list.
Yep. Okay. Um, Whoops. Ah, I want to get up from here. How am I in here? And I don't want to be in here. Why am I in hints without a map? So how do I get to the main? This is silly. This is a ridiculous beginner question. I don't know why I'm in hints. I guess this is my main.
No, what are you trying to do, Bill?
I see where hello test is, but I guess I'm in the root directory where I've also got hints right now. I got nothing else but hints and prototypes and
Correct.
Correct.
line.
Right. If you
Okay.
go to the outline test, it's a little bit clearer to see what's going on. You have two containers, hints and prototypes. Both were added when you said to include built-in hints from the
Yeah.
file menu.
Yeah.
They appear in the map view, which is a little bit annoying. One quick trick is you can change the hints container to be a separator, and the same thing for prototypes. So you can right click on that and make it a separator. I think that's how to do it.
What I think I can do.
Or edit.
Well, I've made separators and things. I can figure it out.
Right. And once you make it a separator, it's still there and it still works like a container. It's just that it won't show up in the map view.
Yeah.
I almost wish Mark would make that the default for hints and prototypes and things like that.
Note, create separator. This is the kind of thing that I've done. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about.
No,
Yes.
Bill, that's not what he's saying.
Okay.
He's saying make hints a separator.
Make it a
So
separator.
if you hit Command 1, go to open the inspector.
Yeah.
Click on the documents inspector, the little white box.
The little
The
disc.
white box. Yeah. No, number 4. I'm sorry. Go to number 4, the one next to it. And then click the separator
At the bottom.
boolean on the bottom.
Ah,
That turns it to a separator.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. These are things that intuitively are not obvious. It just
Yeah.
requires practice. Um,
Bill, if I can interject an observation, I'm
yeah.
somebody who has been on a mission to move my data center from the VMware virtualization platform to going over to the Proxmox virtualization platform. The bottom line of that is it's a grand exercise in manipulating literally hundreds of technical issues to try and recreate what I have in a new environment.
Uh-huh.
And I have spent the last few weeks feeling just like an idiot because every time I turn around, something which should be obvious and should just work doesn't. And you have to go digging. You have to realize, oh, I overlooked the fact that while the instructions said enclose something in double quotes, the reality was it's actually coming into this other tool in a different way, and I don't need the double quotes. And you're dealing with all kinds of little odds and ends. Technology is unfortunately like that everywhere we turn, and the complexity we're dealing with is so intense that all of us are, I think, in many respects, idiots as soon as we get outside of an area we know intimately. So,
So,
don't feel bad.
no, I'm in good company.
Right.
But while I'm here, I've just been kind of wanting to share in general stuff with you, how I've been really on the simple side. I mean, you guys talk about going into all these functions and things. And here, this is my lab notebook. I mean, it's my everything notebook. And here lab apparatus, but the main part is this is the stuff that I'm working on. Here's water splitting, and I love having a scissors to split the water. Um, but and this is my project, which I just call COTM, and in it, here's everything. So references, planning, apparatus, experiments, and this is where I spend my days, and this is where I want to spend my time in not learning Tinderbox. And you can tell I started with Scrivener and I switched over, so I've got notes. And I've been playing with ideas that you suggest. So I've got links, even though things are pretty organized, batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. These things are equipment that I used, analysis. My synthesis, it's a brown material, so synthesis is brown. So I know this, but I've got tags anyway. And I'm up to batch 5, I'm up to batch 9, and this is how I'm organizing things. So it's like a big messy desktop. Um, I did have these at one point in containers, but it's much easier to look, what did I do between last time and this time? It's just much easier to slide it over. And these links aren't really doing anything for me. This is more of an art. I stuck links in here. This one, which this is issues to avoid, which it links over to from last batch, problems that I had. And so, this is where I am, and this is my next step. This is a to-do. But um, I'll go back up. But so this is I call it artwork, in how I'm choosing to organize my data. But I haven't really gotten into, as I said, functions or anything. It's just visually nice in the map view. Unfortunately, it doesn't exactly tie to outline view because outline just goes by date, and my map is not necessarily organized by date. So if I wanted my outline organized, I'd have to manually do it and spend as much time doing that as I do with my experiments. But here I am, I got prototypes, lookup, hints, templates.
Yeah.
And so it's, administration, contacts. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share with you what I'm doing with how I'm using Tinderbox, and it's in a simple way, or relatively simple. As compared to where most of you guys are.
Yeah, but that's not a
It,
problem.
it,
Before
it,
you close it too, that's not a problem. I mean, if it's like any tool. If it's serving your needs, that's great. I'm sorry, Chuck, you were going to say something?
yeah, I was just gonna say, offer some commentary, if Bill doesn't mind. First of all, I think what you're doing is very impressive, and shows very good use of the tool and the visualization. I can you make it clear how that visualization is helpful to you. If you'll pardon a shameless plug, the reason I developed the diagram view, which is described in the forum, was to deal with the problem you have, which is the difference between outline view and the natural organization of the information as a set of information objects is not necessarily the view you want to have when you want to visualize the relationships between these things. And so you may find that could be a way to enhance what you're doing. Because I was doing some things that bear some resemblance to what you're doing, but I wanted to maintain a structure that was rational in terms of the information, but that allowed me to work in a visual environment where all that information was presented, but independent of the hierarchical structure. So again, just a suggestion that you may find that could enhance what you're doing.
Okay.
But overall, I would have to say I'm impressed. It looks pretty good. The organization that you've arrived at works well for you, obviously, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I haven't really felt the need for functions yet, but I imagine they'll be useful. I mean, they're things that I'm doing.
The purpose of having things like a package diagram view is so that you don't have to worry about the functions. They're there, but you should be able to just use the stamps and use the methods that are provided without having to know how the functions work.
Um, yeah.
In other words, it's an application within Tinderbox.
Your thing is an application.
The diagram view is an application within Tinderbox, and it now includes this installation procedure, which should make it a little bit easier to work with.
Yeah.
So you don't have to really understand functions, but you could still use the application, the diagram application, to give yourself another way of visualizing information that is hierarchical in nature, but that you want to visualize in the flat plane that you're using with map view.
Yeah.
It's just a way to separate two informational views.
Yep.
In a way that you might find useful, and that they would stay connected. In other words, if you created a link in your hierarchical structure, you could have that link represented optionally in your outline, your diagram.
Okay.
And go ahead.
And your file, does that need to be updated every time Tinderbox gets updated, or is it just something I can plug in? And
it shouldn't. There are always little edge cases that crop up. It should work for you. Again, I'm not trying to sell it. I was just trying to say, that.
Well, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
I've got I know your name, Chuck Wade, so I can find it.
Chuck, just drop a link in the chat for him if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I can find it in the forum. So
yeah, yeah, and it's again, I'm interested in some feedback from people. So if I developed the diagram view for my own purposes, and then the package management system again, for my own purposes, so that it would be easier to maintain this stuff across multiple Tinderbox documents. Um, I'm interested in feedback from people as to whether or not this is a useful approach. I mean, so far I've heard a few positive comments, but I suspect a lot of people might be a little bit intimidated by it because it involves a whole bunch of functions. Well, don't worry about that. As far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't have to deal with those functions. However, should you later find you wanted to do something different from what I did, you could potentially build off that base and add your own extensions or do other things.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about AI, I sort of would like to learn about functions. So um, I can see what it starts to do for me.
Sure.
And I think
I will
By the way,
warn you.
if I can clarify real quick before we move on.
Yeah.
When you talk about Bill, when you say learning about functions, I think it'd be clearer to say I'd like to learn about action code, which is the scripting language that allows you to automate activities within Tinderbox. And that
right.
action code can be triggered by stamps, functions, rules, edicts, on ads. There's maybe 15, 16 different ways to trigger action
Right.
code, functions being one of them.
So I started before functions existed, and I have a couple of rules and edicts, and that's how I got these mileage that I could keep for different years. Um, so I'm doing a little bit of that. Functions was just an added methodology that gets into programming more, and it's just my curiosity. But I get what where you're coming from. It's action code. It's all action code. Um,
Yeah, Michael, I'm glad you said that because I use action code constantly in all of my files in Tinderbox, and I almost never use a function. So I was confused there.
well, they existed first, so we knew how to do things that way, and now we have a new way. Um, So I'm going to stop sharing this but it's just something because this is a sharing forum, I wanted to share what I'm doing with Tinderbox. So that's my primary what I'm doing. Um, so thank you for all for your comments, and Chuck, I will look at your program.
All right. So who's next?
I was just going to suggest, hey guys, I was just going to suggest that Bill might want to watch the Meetup video, the one where Chuck introduced.
I think I was there
is
for
that-
it.
yeah. Yeah, we all were, I guess. But yeah. But I actually watched a bit of it again later, and just helps a lot to sort of, to rewatch and reintegrate the thoughts.
All right. So does anybody else have anything else they want to chat about or topics that they have? Yes, no? If not,
I'll
we
make
can
some
go ahead.
I'm a lot. I make some comments about AI. I want to start with where Mark did, where he said he's skeptical about it. Um, there's an expression that I now am gonna is my own. Well, for me, my relationship with Claude, and the words are, "You're absolutely right." You guys know where those words come from. I see a smile on Mary's, unless that's a picture. Um, it's because it's making errors all the time. More the majority of the time. If you ask it anything factual, it goes and looks for patterns, and then it doesn't compare actual factual data or reference data to the patterns that it finds. It just reports back the pattern algorithm. And so it ends up giving false information more than it does giving accurate information. In my case, when you're asking it technical questions. If you ask it something that's very common on the web, fine. But so then I found the place where it kind of works is coding, especially with Claude. And as I've expressed, I'm kind of new. I'm not a coder, a programmer, but I wanted to learn Julia because I want to I want to plot some data that I take from these machines that, spectroscopic data. So I asked Claude to write a program for me in Julia to graph a text file. And it starts out, it organizes things wonderfully. And I put it in to compile the thing and it fails. So I read the error message back into Claude and it says, "Oh, you're using depreciated code. Change it to this." So I put the fix back into the Julia and run the command. And oh, I've got another error message, and I've got to throw, missing this environment or whatever the error messages are. And through this iterative process, I finally get some code that produces a graph of my data. So I'm very pleased, and it's very well organized. But because of the way AI works, where it's not going and finding it, just finding patterns, it starts with almost irrelevant. Well, not irrelevant's the wrong word, but any data it finds, which is not necessarily the most recent and accurate data. So it took what could have been a very efficient process to write a program to plot a graph, and it was very inefficient because of the way it works. But it worked. So
Yeah, I read an article the other day that AI is making software programmers somewhere between 15 to 30% less efficient. It's actually not helping us,
because
and it's slow, it's buggy, and it's dumbing us down. Not only is it not giving us the proper code and making us chase our tails, we're also becoming, we're losing our critical thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and one could argue that our loss of critical thinking is largely a management problem with corporate America, because the first thing they do with AI is fire all the programmers because we don't need them anymore.
Oh, that's yeah. Let's see. But what I think we're all old enough to remember the days when calculators first came out. And
Slide rules, Bill.
say again?
Slide rules.
Slide rules. Well, yeah, so slide rules were here, and actually I had a slide rule. But when calculators came out, well, slide rules for like converting logarithms and stuff. So they were for more scientific stuff. But simple mathematics, addition and multiplication and division, all of a sudden you don't have to do it because you can press it into your calculator. And so that form of thinking got weakened because we're not doing the calculations in our head anymore. We can just press buttons on a machine. So you can see the dumbing down that I saw with the start of calculators, and it's just exponentially grown from then there. But yeah, slide rules made doing logarithms much easier. Before that was
a personal observation. I went through that when I started college 55 years ago. I went out and bought myself a used mechanical calculator, one of those things that you punch in, had a whole series of rows, one row of numbers for each digit position in the calculator, and you punch all your numbers in. You press multiply and you go ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. But it could multiply 9 digits faster than you could. Or division, same thing. That was how I kind of got through college. Was I just didn't have the math skills to do that. But one of the things that happened along the way, and I think might be an indication of where we could go with AI and other technologies, is I began to learn to estimate much better and to think about numbers in a totally different way. And one of the things I find interesting is that the educational system, which has not made a whole lot of progress in terms of how we do education, but in the math space, there have been some real advancements in terms of trying to teach kids to think about numbers more holistically and being able to. And so I think that's the value of assists like technology, is if they can help us big picture the problem rather than dealing with the minutia, then it's an asset. If all it does is distract us, which is what I think social media has done, then it's not an advantage, it's a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I hope AI becomes an accelerator of thinking at a higher level rather than dropping down into the weeds. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Could I jump in?
David Eddy will appreciate this. I went to a family event at IBM, and they had some AI stuff there. This is more than a decade ago, maybe even 20 years ago. And anyway, somebody had a sign about AI. This is 20 years ago. Artificial intelligence for the naturally stupid. You know, yeah. And so, but it can be dumbing us down if we lose those critical thinking skills. And Chuck, what you remind me of is what I learned in test taking for mathematics stuff, like taking SAT practice back in the 1970s for me, um, is that estimating is, you've got to give an answer very quickly. And the way you do well on a math part of that test is by estimating. So I had learned that through the tools of the day before personal computers were out. There are ways to teach how to estimate and think in ways that can give reasonable answers in a short period of time, or distinguish between reasonable and unreasonable answers. So those tools were available before AI, and they could be available now. And that's, but I know we're sidetracking, but you just brought up what was an interesting point for me.
Could I offer a different view? I
Yeah.
work for an engineering company that makes control equipment for the power grid. We've been using AI for the past year, and it's an experimental thing, and have had great results with it. Yeah, there are some issues that come up. I mean, you just can't trust it. But I'm a software developer, and well, the company just in the past couple months has bought a license for GitHub Copilot for the entire R&D. That's about 1,000 developers. We're getting good advantage to it. You can't just do stuff and not worry about it. You have to check it, but it's been doing some pretty phenomenal things.
Okay. So I hear you. It just my experience was, the code that developed is wonderful now. For my plotting my Julia software, my small little example compared to the engineering you're doing, it was just inefficient because of its process. And maybe what you're using is a different program than Claude. And
We're using Claude
yeah.
and others, but it's what we have found, of course, is essentially you have to write a specification for what you want. I mean, software requirement specification, small, but it has to be very precise and,
Yep.
and detailed. Okay, otherwise you don't get what you want.
Well, for me, I was starting from I know nothing. So I didn't give it the specifics at first. I had to iterate into those, as I had wrong answers, trial and error.
Yeah.
Well, iterating on what you said, Roger, I think you're making the same point that to a certain extent we need to shift our thinking as contributors to how do we specify things correctly. And requirements. We've always said you got to start with requirements, but how many people do? And so many projects go off the rails because they don't get the requirements right in the first place. So if AI gets us into a mindset where we think about requirements more than the details, then perhaps that's a very positive way to use the tool. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's no magic here. If you don't know what you want, if you're not used to thinking in a very precise way, it's going to take a while for you to get there.
One of the challenges I think that is illustrated here is that Roger knows what he's doing, and what a trend seems to be is not hiring new college graduates because we don't need more programmers now. I'm grossly
Yep,
general.
we are.
A lot of places don't seem to be.
Yep.
And if you don't hire the junior developers, you never get the people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, if you don't have junior developers, you eventually run out of senior developers.
Right. Which is one problem. One of the things that I was planning to do in my class in the spring, which I will now not be doing, but I'll tell you what the plan was, is to make the class meetings. This was for a computer security class for computer science students. The class meetings device free, because one of the things I wanted to give them the experience of is that in meetings, you have to know things and you have to think about things in the moment. And it, as far as I can tell, does not really work very effectively to be trying to scramble to ask questions to an LLM, get them answered, try to understand it, and then say something coherent from that on the fly for it. And so the classes were going to be much more discussion oriented with, you've done prep work with whatever tools you want. But I'm not going to get to run that experiment at this point. But to what Bill was saying, one of the interesting things about slide rules is you had to keep track of magnitudes in your head. And so you are just had an idea about that. And I've been, maybe many of you have, in meetings where someone makes some claim about some numbers and you do a quick mental calculation that the conclusion just cannot be true. They're off by an order of magnitude or 2 or 3 or whatever for it. But you're not going to sit there and punch the numbers into a calculator. That's not what you can do in a meeting.
Yeah, it's thinking that's missing. I'm a recovering academic. When I taught, this was back in the earlier 2000s when I finished my academic career. Every kid had a laptop in the class. And I'm discussion oriented like you are there. And I'd ask a question, so your keyboard's typing away, and then they pop back answers without thinking through the problem behind what I asked. And this is just further on steroids.
Yeah, the challenge I'm having with my classes right now is multiple fold, but one of them is students are increasingly, especially via Zoom sessions, they're increasingly unwilling to discuss because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, or they're afraid of not knowing the answer. And getting active discussion is brutal. And when you call somebody out, they're like, "Why'd you call me out? Why did you embarrass me?" And this ability to have live active discussion is really really quite challenging. And then what I'm doing in my current class this term is I've integrated AI into every assignment, and I have also given them all access to their own digital twin, their own personal AI. And I'm teaching them how to train a digital twin so that they that twin, that AI representation of their thinking can be representative of them. So when and that's a growing trend for professional coaches, teachers, thought leaders, etc. So that you can have that, like if you're doing a talk in front of 1,000 people, you can throw the QR code up behind you, and the audience could be having a conversation with your digital twin while you're delivering your talk. Really interesting stuff. But one of the things I'm finding is they're actually petrified of uploading anything they've written to the twin. They're of training the AI. They're concerned about what they perceive to be privacy, about sharing their name. And even when I say, don't give it your name, call it something else, they're the deer in the headlights. So as much as they know they need to be engaging in these technologies, they're increasingly not. And it's a really scary thing because they're unwilling to explore and make mistakes with the technology. I'm finding it more and more.
So, Michael, I have a great response to that, but Bruce has his hand up, and I want to honor that. But then after that, I want to come back to that comment about AI and the difficulty with students.
Well, first of all, Bill, I yield. I need to hear your great response first.
All right.
It's
So
fine.
a big legitimate concern about AI is that it takes your data and it's out there for everyone else to see. And there's no trust of what happens with AI data. And so I can totally relate
So,
to a person that doesn't want to put anything personal or that can show weakness into an AI model.
so let me stop you right there, Bill. So, the context of what we're talking about, the personal AI tools I'm bringing to the students, you're not training the model. You're building a RAG so that the model can pull from your data. Also, you own that. This is the digital twin I've found is very unique in that you own your data, you own your AI twin. It's all built around everything I've been talking about now for years, self-sovereign identity and your ability to have agency over your content and data, which, by the way, is no matter how many times I talk to the students about that, they're having an incredible time wrapping their head around this idea that I could actually have control and ownership over my data, let alone being able to do so with an AI model or with an AI twin. So that's another really interesting dynamic I think we as society need to really figure out.
Right.
But go ahead.
The data is local.
Oh, go on. I'm sorry, Bill.
I just, if you know that the data is local, then that's one thing. But anything that goes up to the cloud, you can't trust. So,
Well, that sort of gets into what I was going to say because, I mean, I've been working with students for few decades plus now, and there has been a sea change over the last 10 to 15 years, most recently escalating over the last 5 years. And number one, students by and large have not been taught or trained by their previous schools and or parents to take risks and to be wrong, and then that part of critical thinking skills, if you will. um, Parents, pick your term, bulldozer parents, lawnmower parents.
no plow,
I what did you say, Bill?
no plow.
Snowplow parents.
Right. Yes. So I speak to these families, and parents are terrified of causing their children pain. They they know that it's the wrong thing. They know that they need to have life experiences, and at the same time, it's very hard for them to not take over. And so that's number one. And number two is that the current population of students has grown up in a, I'm going to say, surprisingly mean, callous culture. And anything that they do or say is right for a peer to take pictures, record what they've said surreptitiously, post about it. So how you create a safe space for that and how you talk with them. One of the successes that I've had in my own programs is rather than trying to talk to them all as a larger group, and in my case, we're not talking huge numbers, but say 18 of them. I break them up into 3 or even 4 smaller groups and let them talk in that smaller space. And then one of them is appointed as a leader, and they come back and they summarize. I don't know how applicable that is for you, but I have a feeling that the problem you're running into is more of a trust issue, and not just trusting you, but trusting that even though you say there are certain things that are going to happen in a certain way, their experience has been otherwise. So
Yeah, I
those are
agree.
just some thoughts.
No, I agree. But part of what I'm trying to teach them though too is they're allowing their fear even in a controlled environment like a classroom to stop them cold from even being willing to experiment with the technologies.
But
And
what makes you call the classroom a controlled environment? I mean, they can post about each other outside of there.
no, true. But the controlled
So,
environment of like, here's a tool, try it. They're like, so many of them are even willing to even try the tool because they're afraid of doing it wrong. They're afraid of not understanding. They're afraid of not getting it right the first time. Right? They're
Yep.
afraid of not being familiar with it. And I keep telling them, like, look, what's the fastest way to survive a bear attack? Be one step ahead of the rest of them, of the slowest guy in front of, behind you. And I'm like telling them, like, look, I'm just one step ahead of you. You're going to quickly catch up with me.
but
And they
Michael,
still really struggle with that.
you are the antithesis of most of the students that you are working with. You're a risk taker, you're open, you try new things. These are all the things they have not been exposed to. And
True.
we are 5 years plus COVID. What's the age of your average student?
19.
So
Yeah.
they were 15 years old, 16 years old as they were coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
And and if you think about it, that became their middle school and high school experiences. I mean, this is exactly what I'm dealing with. They are emotionally delayed. They and the parenting techniques that have been used. I mean, I I spent an hour and a half with a family regarding a high schooler just the other day, and if I told you, you wouldn't believe any of it. But the point of it is that the the parent is so unwilling to let their child experience negative consequences, if you will, that taking an Uber at midnight, sneaking out, and he's 15 years old. Uh, and how the family, because they give him a credit card, they're not willing to pull back on some of this, and when they tell him he can't have something, he just finds another way around it. That's not uncommon, and parents have a hard time standing their ground. So my point to that is, if you're dealing with 19-year-olds, you're likely dealing with a fragile population. And
Interesting.
how you engender trust within them, how you speak to them, it's very different than bear with me 1 second. Mike, hold on, I will call you back in 2 minutes.
You got it.
Thanks. So how you do all of that, you might want to, I mean, delve into, there's Very Well Mind is a good website that gives a lot of information about child development at this phase. It is very different than it has ever been in the past. So those are just some thoughts. And
Yep.
and my teaching strategies, my work with students has had to change radically, simply because of not only the students and their lack of life experience, because things that you're taking for granted, they have no experience with. There was grades, grades, grades for many of them, schedule, and then COVID.
Yeah.
And so even the mere fact of how they socialize with one another, the things that you're mentioning about the fears of being wrong and being judged by others, those aren't made up. That really happens to them. And it can happen online where someone posts about, I'm not going to name names, but the idiots in my class. And then they see that about themselves. So it might be something, you might have to create a digital triplet to help you solve the problem of what to do about the digital twin. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Fascinating.
but
Yeah. But
it's an unfortunate piece. I mean, I gave a talk, when was it? Friday, to about 25 psychologists, and some of them very, very young. And I tried to explain about, they all wanted to know, AI is the only thing they want to talk about. How is it ethical to let AI write their reports? And, and we kind of began to talk through that. I wanted to show them different tools that they could use. And I had a list of 33 different programs that I thought could help them. And I selected 5 that I wanted to highlight a little bit. They were definitely interested, but the questions kept coming back. Will I get into trouble if I do that? These are psychologists. These are licensed people. So
Yeah.
I'll stop at that.
Interesting.
I got more after Chuck goes too.
Okay, just a couple of comments because I think this is a discussion that to me is very relevant. I've got some personal family issues that really touch on what Bruce was just talking about quite poignantly. But one of the things that I tripped across recently was a survey of the attitudes of the emerging generation, of the high schoolers and college age kids. And the thing that struck me was their attitude toward AI was very negative. And it was very negative because their perception was that AI was taking away all the things that they had seen for themselves as future career possibilities. And so, I was just kind of flabbergasted that, you don't view yourself as having a future career because of AI. But as I started thinking about it and all the rhetoric and all the noise that is out there and thinking about this from the perspective of a early 20 something, I could absolutely see that people would perceive that that's the threat to them. It becomes very personal. And I think that's a major concern when you then throw in all the damage that has been done by social media and the exposure that everybody has. I think it gets into a very ugly soup of messiness and distrust. Throw in the current political situation, it only makes it worse. So, I can't imagine being in my early 20s or late teens at this point coming into the world right now. I mean, it's got to be scary as hell. At the same time, what do we do about it? And so thinking about what you were saying, Michael, and what Bruce was just saying, what occurred to me was the two of you ought to get together and use your course, Michael, as an interesting experiment to try and understand what could we do to help this generation out. I think that is the number one problem. We are about to lose a generation to, an explosion of issues that humanity is not prepared to deal with. And how do we help that generation move forward? I haven't any clue. I mean, again, I've got some personal situations which make me very aware of just how serious a problem this is. It's, not just bad, it's life-threatening. And so, that kind of thing is a major concern. And I suspect that the people who are in this group all share that concern. And I don't know where we go, but I do think it's an extremely important point and something that we've got to do something about. I'll shut up.
Well, and let me add to that before Paul jumps in. So, like one thing I had a Fortune 500 CMO speak in our class a couple weeks ago, and from day one of the class, I've been asking the students to LinkedIn and connect with me, and I showed them how to do it. And out of 43 people, only 3 have done it. And up until yesterday. And their response was, well, because we don't know how, or we're not familiar with the tool. And then I had this Fortune 500 CMO show up, and she says, look, I'm a Fortune 500 CMO. Connect with me, link in with me. If you have an article, I'll publish it through my network. Connecting and engaging and being a thought leader is critical to your career development. The only way you're going to get a job is by building and nurturing relationships with people like me. And out of the 43 students, only 2 of them connected with her. And even when we gave them the link and we said, this is your future, didn't do it. And that's what I'm struggling with. I don't understand this lack of initiative for your future. And this desire for them to be able to say, give me the exact steps on how to do it and don't make me figure it out myself. And I hear you, Bruce. They haven't been taught, they haven't been trained, but to your point, Chuck, it's really scary. Like, how do you overcome this? Paul and then Phil.
Yeah, if I can share a quick anecdote, whenever I hear these discussions, and this is a great one about reacting to a major shift in technology and how we're doing it, I think back to when I got out of graduate school as an economist and got a job at a big government agency and showed up on Monday for my first day of work, and there were 50 people in a room with desks, and all of them had 10-key 200-pound calculators on them, which it was assumed we were going to use in our work somehow. I'd never been trained in the thing. Well, I was told by my supervisor, don't worry, we're replacing these with electronic calculators on Friday. You'll have what you're used to. So we waited till Friday. Thursday night, we go home and we've got these 200-pound, automated machines sitting on our desk. Friday morning, we walk in and they overnight had come in and replaced them all with very lightweight electronic calculators. But what they had done, the workers had come in and taken the security cables that were holding down the 10-key, 200-pound machines from being stolen. They had attached the same things to the lightweight electronic calculators. And so they were all sitting about 3 feet above the desktops, hovering in the air because they couldn't weight these cables down. So we all looked at them and said, this is absolutely stupid. But I think about that every time because we're trying to use the new technology with the old mindsets and the old tools, and we haven't made the transition yet. And I think of that with your students too, Michael. It's a great example. We're still struggling with how to use AI for the future us, and we're doing it with the old us, and it's hard.
Yeah, and it's not just them too. In all seriousness with my students, like I'm just one step ahead of them between them and the bear. Like I'm struggling with this as much as they are in so many ways. And that's why I enjoy these calls, because they help me be vulnerable and they help me learn and grow. But this stuff's hard. Yeah, Phil. Phil Sherman, you had your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, I got a dog jumping on me, sorry.
Got one on the screen too.
Yeah. Oh, I can change that too. So I just have one as an observation, and the other is just a follow-up on something Bruce said. Probably, well, during COVID, I started moving towards group work in my classes. And after COVID, I kept it, and it worked sort of okay. Most of the models required large groups. And so I try to transition to smaller groups, and I have more interactions in my classes now because they first start in a smaller group. They have a spokesperson for that group. And so it's kind of the relying on others that they become comfortable with to be able to express their opinions as a collective is starting to work. And the other thing is, in 40 years of teaching, I've never had something like I've experienced now, where I have 3 students who live over 2 hours from the campus who will drive to campus and then drive home because their parents want them at home rather than on campus.
Yeah. And talk about the losing out on so many important experiences. Like forget the classroom. Forget the classroom. It's just being able to do your laundry, to live, get a pizza, all of that.
Well, we have a Friday seminar where we bring speakers in. They all have to do an internship, so I start out with people who've done internships and then preceptors for internships so they can start picking them, and they won't come because they've got to get home. And so they're missing out on all kinds of opportunities, and I think it's going to exacerbate the problem.
Yeah. When?
So since we're ranting about education in a sense now and kids these days, but I think it's more what we've done to kids these days than the kids themselves. I have an impression, this is not based on data, except it comes up in some articles that I've seen in various ways, that a lot of kids who are going to college, maybe most of them who go to college or university, the structure of the high school experience has become very regimented, and here are the set of bars you have to jump over and hoops you have to jump through, very precisely defined. And so the students end up, when they get to college, not having had experience in choosing something, in failing at something that they had tried and wanted to do, and learning how to figure out something else about it. It's all do the test, do the test, do the test.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there was some of that when my kids were in high school, but and leaving aside the pandemic, I think that this was sort of the trend. I think the pandemic probably exacerbated a whole lot of it for it. But the trend was still going there. But when, especially my youngest, who graduated from high school shortly before the pandemic, she was a freshman in college when it hit, is the sense of you had to do all the right things and the right number of things, and the way the parents were freaked out about all of this was much stronger than the way the kids were, except that then they were constrained by what the parents were telling them. So for what that's worth.
All right. Hey, everybody. I've got 8% of battery left, and I would love to respond to Andreas's request for us to actually do something practical in Tinderbox. So let me share my screen and I'll do it. And then my battery is going to die and our meeting will be over. So if that's okay, let me pop in and do that. I just noticed I got a battery alarm. So if that's okay with you, let's pop in and do that. I wanted to share with you something that we had from the
Go ahead,
forum this
Michael.
week.
Just hang up on us in mid-sentence.
Yeah, I am going to go ahead just to hang up on you in mid-sentence. So this is the, if you see my screen, this is a, so the idea in the forum thread was this gentleman is collecting emails. So this is email 1 or 2, email 1. And what he was looking to do was interject into this delimiter in his email, and then he put an answer behind that. And then he wanted to be able to collect all of those responses. And so let's say here are all the different emails. And then he wanted to say, how do I go about having Tinderbox automatically grab all of the text underneath?
What you're sharing doesn't appear to align with what you're talking about.
What do you mean? What am I sharing?
Just sharing a presentation.
IBM 3292, something
No.
other.
Your screen.
No, let me share it. Stop sharing.
Blame it on the battery.
Oh, desktop 1. Do you see a Tinderbox file now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So he has several emails, and what he's trying to do is to figure out how to delimitate all of the text below the delimitator. So his goal would be, how do I respond to all of these emails I pulled in, have a delimitator below this, and pull that text up? And there are a variety of ways to go about doing this. And honestly, personally, my approach would be not to pollute the original email with a response. I would, for me, I'd like to keep them separate so that I could have, and I'll show you an example of how to go about doing that. But again, I've got about 6% battery left. So let me show you the answer I gave him that addresses his immediate problem. And then we can go from there. So I created a stamp for him, which essentially does this, and it says, look at first. Does and you actually don't need this. Does text dot contain email? So if you could say, and he kind of bastardized. Let me do it. Let me show you a different file. Because his one is a little, I lost all my favorites because I upgraded to 11. So the idea here is you basically go into the text. You say my string equals text.split, and then look at the delimitator, and then Actually, let me stop sharing the screen. This is the wrong one. Let me pull it over. Downloads. Where was my, here we go. This is my response. So, come on. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
What are you guys going? Okay, so what I did was there's a variety of ways to go about doing this. This was his original attempt. That's what I was doing. So the idea is you want to look at your emails that you've collected, such as, and I'll go ahead and delete that text. So let's say you've got these emails like this, and you have this delimiter response underneath the emails. So all you need to do is quickly say, go collect all the children of a particular note. And this one, collect all replies. Create a couple placeholder variables, and then you each loop through that note. And so you say for each of the items, first create a, I created a name of the note. I then said, okay, what I want you to do is using a regex, go into the text and extract anything that's following the answer prompt. And then you can go ahead and do that. And if you do this, hit apply the text. What that does is automatically grabs creates a name for every one of the emails and then grabs the respondent text out of each one of those things. And so this is a way of using action code to actually extract content out of a particular note. And that was one example we were playing with on how to go about doing that. And again, very simple approach. All you need to do is create a handful of variables and then use several operators to be able to do that. And the particular operator that's making all this magic happen is this one right here called extract. And what I'm essentially doing is I'm using a regex that says extract everything in between, following this answer delimiter. And then you have that, and then you populate the collected text responses into that note, and then populate the text note that you were doing with that. The other approach that I would do, and I personally think this is better, is you have your email like this, and then you create a child note for the answer. So then that way, and there's a whole bunch of other ways. If I were doing this myself, I would add attributes to the answer so that the answer could be strictly associated with this response to Joseph, for example. And then the way to go about doing that is you're essentially same kind of function. Tell Tinderbox to go collect all of the descendants of a particular note, looking for notes that have a prototype name answer. You then go ahead and stick in the name of the note. You then take the text of that note answer and then populate the text. So if I do that, I now can go like this, and you get the same result. And so, and again, I only have like 2% battery left, but and I'll share this file so you all can see it. But this is two approaches to accomplish the same, to achieve this as the same kind of outcome that you can do in Tinderbox. One is you create a delimiter in text and then use extract operators to be able to pull out the desired text you have. The other one is to have your response be a child of the email that you're looking at, and then just do a simple collect and appending the responses together. So that's a quick and dirty discussion that we've had within the forum. Before I lose my battery, and which will run out in about 2%. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, reactions to that? Chuck, I noticed you smiling or nodding a little bit. What are your what's your reaction or thoughts?
Nothing in particular. It's just, okay. All makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, and Bill, this is an example of, an automation feature with action code. So I could see what you could do, for example, your in your tests and your studies, you might include like a delimiter or a child note in some of the experiments you're doing. And then this would be an example. You could use action code that could extract all of the notes or side comments you might have about those experiments to be able to create be able to assemble those for whatever purpose, a report or
The
just to help
next
you kind of
experiment.
just to help you kind of summarize some of the ideas or thinking that you've had scattered throughout your experiment, your notes, the notes of your experiments.
Yeah, I can see that. Things go wrong in every experiment, and I have to remember to fix them. And those kind of notes are scattered.
Right. So what you could do is, put a little delimiter in there that says, error, and then use this stamp to retrieve all of the comments, all of the notes you made below the error delimiter in your experiments.
Yeah. Right now I make them red as a note and
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. Well, I'm down to 1% battery. So rather than just having the meeting die so unceremoniously, why don't we just go ahead and say, really fun meetup today, everybody, and we will catch you next week. Oh, and by the way, here you go. Here you go. Go Niners. That's the tailgate that I'm about to jump into. So, all right. See you, everybody. Bye.